That goes for the way you're dressed,
What are
too.
you doing to me? What's the matter with the way I'm dressed? You're a fine one to criticize anything I do.
Deirdre, I have never made a practice of slapping people. But I'm dangerously close to slapping you right now.
They used to say Hollywood's golden age was all about glittering spotlights and polished smiles, but there's another side that most fans never saw. These list of icons today might amaze you, from the beloved actor Errol Flynn to the iconic men Henry Fonda. Behind every crisp black and white portrait was a tangle of controversies, power struggles, difficult personalities, and shocking allegations. So the question is, who the actual real person they were? Let's dive in. Wallace Beery. One of the most disturbing aspects of Wallace Beery's career was when he bullied verbally and physically other younger actors who had less experiences than him right on set. Those incidences left a mark on his career. When audiences saw Wallace Beery, they might have admired his gruff yet lovable presence. He was a recognizable staple of early talking films, often playing grizzled characters with hidden hearts of gold. Off-screen, though, he seemed far from benevolent. Some called him a tyrant, describing a set environment so tense that actors new to the industry would dread working with him. Rumors circulated when Beery made younger co-stars quake with fear. During the Champ 1931 films, Wallace was reported that he slapped a child actor named Jackie Cooper, who played Wallace's son on the movie set. At the time, Cooper was only 9 years old. Don't let the on-scene lovable relationship between father and son fool you, because the off-screen dynamic was far less nurturing. Many younger actors said that Wallace used his physical size and clout to intimidate others, unleashing harsh words and even aggressive physical contact if scenes didn't go his way. People commented on his behavior that Wallace apparently believed dominating a film set was the surest way to maintain star power. Off-screen, the reality was often the polar opposite. Jackie Cooper later recalled how Beery would reduce him to tears through scoldings, put-downs, and in at least one instance, a direct slap. For many, that revelation shattered illusions about the lovable grump. It also cast a spotlight on early Hollywood's power imbalances, where big-name stars could do almost anything without serious career repercussions. Faye Dunaway seemed destined for cinematic greatness. She carried herself with undeniable poise in films like Bonnie and Clyde and Chinatown, transforming every role into high art. Her ambition was legendary, perhaps too legendary. Insiders claim that she often clashed with directors, co-stars, and stage crews, leaving chaos in her wake. A notable turning point of her life came when she starred in a Broadway production about Katharine Hepburn's life. Stories emerged that Dunaway's behind-the-scenes conduct led to mounting tension among her colleagues. Before long, she abruptly exited the show, and whispers spread that she'd been physically combative with certain staff. Though exact details remain cloudy, the drama left its mark on her career. Her departure from the show was called somewhat disaster-filled with drama. On the set of Chinatown, the friction reportedly reached new heights. People close to the production described erratic mood swings and bizarre habits, tales that ranged from raging outbursts to downright puzzling behavior. The rumor that she once used a trash can on set as a makeshift restroom is still repeated in Hollywood lore, though Dunaway herself has disputed it. In one infamous incident, she allegedly threw a cup of liquid at director Roman Polanski during a heated confrontation. Whether it was water or something else became a point of debate. The story circulated widely and became part of the narrative in her legacy career. Despite this behind-the-scenes chaos, Chinatown became a cinematic masterpiece, and Dunaway's performance won critical acclaim. This duality, shining on screen yet feuding off it, would forever define her reputation. Her reputation still got ruined and labeled as most difficult actress to work with. Henry Fonda. Henry Fonda's image was built based on the very picture of dignity man on most of his roles. In classic films, he stood for fairness, morality, and compassion, a guiding light in westerns and dramas alike. His image of a calm, steadfast hero became inseparable from his name, so much so that audiences believed he must be exactly the same in private. But away from the camera, a different man emerged. His life was more complicated than his roles. His children, Jane and Peter, told a different story, that Fonda's personal life was far from serene. The real Henry Fonda was reportedly from his friends and family that he was emotionally unavailable, someone who struggled to show vulnerability. They stated that they always felt that coldness every day around Fonda. Fonda, born in 1905 in Grand Island, Nebraska, he was raised from a very strict and conservative family, where emotion display often avoid or not allowed to express to keep his role as a man of family. Later in life, his daughter, Jane Fonda, wrote in her autobiography, My Life So Far, that her father barely expressed affection at home. He was physically present, but somehow distant, locked behind an invisible wall that nobody could breach. She had spent her entire life to fill up the void that her father left in her. She would not denied or stated that was an example of failed parenting. His marriages did little to solve the tension. Henry Fonda married totally 5 times in his life, and infidelity rumors trailed him through several of those unions. That pattern often left deep wounds, heartbreak for the spouses, and confusion for the children watching it all unfold. His third wife, Susan Blanchard, who is 21 years younger than him, described their marriage as problematic due to Fonda's inability to fully commit entirely with his relationship after their divorce. When Jane and Peter's mother, Frances, took off her own life in 1950, Fonda refused to discuss it. He would even bother to confront his kids, leaving them to sort through their grief alone. The entire family was devastated. This contradiction between the nurturing father figure on screen and the emotionally distant man at home reveals how illusions in Hollywood can become so powerful. One moment, he embodied America's moral compass. The next, he was an almost unreachable figure to those who needed him most, his family. Errol Flynn. No one captured the spirit of swashbuckling escapades like Errol Flynn. Whether dueling across castles or sailing on pirate ships, he embodied a devil-may-care attitude. Off-screen, his appetite for risk was just as large. Boisterous parties, high-profile affairs, and antics that tested the boundaries of Hollywood propriety. His unstoppable charisma masked a spiral of high-profile accusations that came to a head in 1942 when serious charges were brought against him to court. He was accused of statutory rape by 2 young women named Barbary Ann and Betty Hansen. The trial was salacious, dominating headlines from Hollywood to across national television and sparking intense debate about whether Flynn had exploited his fame for unsavory encounters. Flynn denied the charges and stated that the relationships with the 2 young women was consensual, and he was the victim of this incidences. At the end, the court found insufficient evidences to support the allegations. Though the legal outcome cleared him, his image never fully recovered. Since his reputation was completely ruined, public fascination with his personal life only grew. Some fans stood by him, insisting the allegations were overblown. Others believed the rumored misdeeds and called him a predatory figure. Either way, his name was now attached to scandal wherever he went. Through it all, he managed to remain an in-demand leading man, but the golden veneer had permanently cracked. time marched on, and so did Hollywood's talent roster. A different kind of star had been winning hearts with a microphone in hand, and just like many other legends, his private struggles ran deeper than anyone suspected. Kirk Douglas, one of the most iconic stars, is Kirk Douglas. He was born in Isur Danielovich, Amsterdam, New York, 1916. He was the fourth of 7 children and the only son in his Russian Jewish immigrants family. Kirk Douglas's towering presence can still be felt in classics like Spartacus and Paths of Glory. A quick smile, a determined glint in his eye, and an ironclad sense of confidence made him a star. But after his passing, unsettling allegations began to resurface. Accusations about his mistreating Natalie Wood, who was then barely 15 years old, young actress. According to persistent rumors, Wood had to visit his hotel room and spent several hours there with him, and threatened to remain silent. Who God knows what happened in there? The story was widely circulated but has never been proven, yet it gained momentum after Douglas's death, when discussions of his legacy overshadowed almost everything else. Both Douglas and Woods are now deceased, leaving a void of first-hand testimony, and made the story most likely to ever be uncovered. Fans who had once admired him found themselves confronting a much darker narrative. Kirk Douglas also carried a reputation for strong-arming directors and co-stars. During Spartacus' movie set, he fired the original director just a week into filming. Right after that, he even hired Stanley Kubrick, known for his own rigid standards. Douglas still tried to control every aspect of production, which leading to the tension between them on set. Some said that environment was draining, even though the movie turned out to be a grand success. Similarly, on the set of Paths of Glory, his blunt and forceful style frequently clashed with Kubrick's precise vision. Colleagues admired Douglas's passion, but feared his temper. This pattern hinted at a deeper conflict. Behind the scenes, power struggles and inflated egos often threatened to tear productions apart. And the controversies continue. Jerry Lewis. Jerry Lewis might be best remembered for broad slapstick routines and comedic partnerships, especially with Dean Martin. But behind the goofy facade lurked a perfectionist who could be notoriously difficult. Crew members often complained about Lewis's demanding autocratic style, describing how he'd run rehearsals well past their scheduled end and berate team members who didn't meet his exacting standards. He wanted everything has to go his own way in order to contribute his talent acting. He was also known for wanting complete control over every aspect of his films, from writing and directing to editing. While this approach sometimes led to innovative comedy, it also bred resentment among colleagues who felt overshadowed or undermined. Rumors swirled that Lewis's vanity knew no bounds, including alleged tantrums if cameras didn't capture his best angles. One especially persistent story involves Lewis physically throwing objects at a stagehand he believed was slacking off, creating an on-set atmosphere thick with tension. Whether that's literally true or heavily embellished is hard to confirm, but enough similar stories exist to reinforce a central theme. The comedic legend who made millions laugh could be fiercely intimidating to those who worked under him. Reporters took the story and escalated them, making it widely circulate among others and marked Jerry as difficult actor to work with. Bing Crosby seemed like a man defined by his soothing voice and easygoing style. He was America's comforting crooner, the star who made Christmas carols iconic and lent a laid-back warmth to every film. His successes were undeniable, Yet his home life was a far cry from the relaxed charm he projected on stage. Crosby's marriage to actress and singer Dixie Lee in 1930 looked picture perfect at first. They had 4 sons all together and seemed like an all-American perfect family back in the day. But the true began to show to public eyes when Lee, who had her own bright career, started to explode. Lee battled severe mental health issues and a dependence on alcohol that took a tragic toll. The picture perfect started to crumble. In time, she succumbed to her struggles and passed away in 1952, leaving Crosby a single father of 4 boys. Crosby famous of keeping his personal life in private, but many rumors began to spread after Lee's tragically dead. That's when unsettling truths about his parenting began to emerge and his true character became to light. The relationship between him and his children were complicated. His oldest son, Gary, later penned a deeply revealing autobiography, painting Crosby as harsh, emotionally aloof, and obsessed with discipline. According to Gary, he described a childhood spent constantly under scrutiny, with love or warmth always a distant second to strict rules and high expectations. This later negatively affected Gary's adult life, which leading to his own struggle with substance abuse and difficult relationship with his father. Crosby's public facade as a gentle family man wavered under these revelations. For many fans, it was inconceivable that the man who sang lullabies on the radio could be so stiff and unsympathetic at home. But again, the theme is clear. The distance between a star's on-screen image and real-life personality can be staggering. Milton Berle. Before the era of streaming and viral videos, Milton Berle was television's undisputed king. Known as Mr. Television, he drew millions of viewers and shaped the early days of variety shows with his brazen humor and in-your-face personality. But as TV matured, new comedic voices like Sid Caesar and Johnny Carson emerged, leaving Berle's vaudeville style looking dated. The final blow to Berle's star image might have been his notorious appearance on Saturday Night Live in 1979. SNL was everything Berle wasn't: improvisational, edgy, and youth-driven. When Berle took the stage, he tried dominating the show his old-school way. He ignored scripts, improvised without letting the cast in on his plans, and played to the live audience rather than engaging in the ensemble dynamic. The result was a chaotic episode that clashed painfully with SNL's modern vibe. Cast members were outraged by Berle's refusal to adapt, calling him arrogant and out of touch. He, in turn, saw them as disrespectful youngsters with no appreciation for old Hollywood's comedic tradition. The tension spilled into the performances, generating an awkward spectacle that would go down in SNL history as one of the show's biggest misfires. This incident crystallized how the comedic landscape had shifted. Berle learned that the brand of humor that once made him a legend had become a relic. He might have paved the way for future entertainers, but in that moment, the road he paved had moved on without him. Other Hollywood greats struggled to adapt in different ways. Some turned bitterness into an art form. Next, we look at a man hailed as a cinematic genius who, in private, vented his frustrations with savage critiques of fellow stars. Peter Sellers. Peter Sellers is best remembered for his comedic brilliance in classics like The Pink Panther. His characters radiated wit and playful absurdity, earning him legions of fans who still quote Inspector Clouseau's bungling catchphrases. Yet behind the camera, Sellers was infamous for his mercurial moods. He was also well known as the most difficult and unpredictable to collaborate with. Sellers dove into roles with a consuming passion. Some co-stars found this inspiring, but many directors discovered just how alienating it could be. Sellers might stay fully in character even when the cameras weren't rolling, refusing to respond to his real name or break the illusion. That dedication was comedic gold on screen, but created near-constant tension on set. One particular case is when Sellers worked with director Blake Edwards, who also directed him multiple times, famously navigated Sellers' unpredictable temperament. He'd plan out entire scenes only for Sellers to rewrite them on the fly through improvisation. Meanwhile, producers struggled with missed calls, late arrivals, and abrupt changes in direction whenever Sellers felt a creative urge. Some said he was the devil on set. Despite the frustration, the results were box office hits in the 1960s and 1970s, so the cycle kept repeating. Sellers' co-stars often described working with him as exhilarating one day and exasperating the next. Claudia Cardinale and Elke Sommer found him to be moody and distant, complaining that his refusal to come out of character left them confused about when the scene actually ended. But that wasn't the whole story. Sellers' comedic mania also had a tragic edge. He was deeply insecure and sometimes battled personal demons, which might have fueled his brilliance, but also damaged professional relationships. And while he left behind an impressive filmography, many say he burned bridges almost as quickly as he built his stardom. Orson Welles. Orson Welles revolutionized film with Citizen Kane, a masterpiece that redefined cinematography, narrative structure, and directorial ambition until today. Revered for his visionary genius, Welles could be mesmerizingly eloquent in interviews, yet behind the scenes, he often displayed a caustic streak. Private recordings reveal Welles railing against some of the era's most respected actors, calling Laurence Olivier overrated and dubbing James Stewart cowardly and shallow. The severity of these criticisms took many by surprise, given Stewart's beloved reputation and Olivier's near-universal acclaim. Why was Welles so cutting? Some point to his lifelong battles with Hollywood studios. Welles wanted total creative freedom, but he regularly clashed with powerful executives who tried to control budgets and final cuts. This tension left him feeling stifled, eventually spawning a deep reservoir of resentment toward an industry he believed compromised brilliance for conformity. In a way, Welles's personal bitterness mirrored his professional path. Brilliant successes overshadowed by heartbreaks and constant conflict. Even those who recognized his talent found him difficult to collaborate with. He was known to vanish mid-project if he felt unappreciated, resurface somewhere else with a half-finished idea, and then repeat the process. His critiques of others may have reflected that heartbreak. If he couldn't control the system, perhaps lashing out privately at highly lauded peers gave him a fleeting sense of superiority. Yet those remarks cast a long shadow, reminding everyone that creative brilliance can come packaged with envy and frustration. Mickey Rooney. When audiences think of Mickey Rooney, they often picture a plucky young entertainer with boundless energy, the wide-eyed star who brightened musicals and comedic romps alike. He seemed to epitomize the innocence and optimism of early Hollywood, singing and dancing with effortless flair. But many who worked with Rooney described a man far different from the cherubic character fans adored. He was known for abrupt mood swings, outbursts that stunned co-stars, and a brash, self-important attitude that clashed with Hollywood's polite public face. The most jarring stories center on his interaction with a young Elizabeth Taylor during the filming of National Velvet. Taylor was only 12 years old, a newcomer who'd eventually blossom into a legendary icon. Yet Rooney reportedly belittled her, took advantage of her naivety, and then later dismissed her as talentless and spoiled. He made snide comments that revealed an unsettling degree of cruelty, especially coming from a seasoned star to a child actor. After his passing in 2014, more stories emerged. Colleagues recalled how Rooney's boisterous persona occasionally turned downright abusive. He'd criticize other performers in front of the entire crew and rarely held back scathing remarks about their acting skills. Though his comedic gifts were undeniable, the disparity between his charming on-screen youthfulness and his off-screen abrasiveness left many fans reeling when these truths finally became public. Bob Hope. Bob Hope was a comedy icon who entertained troops overseas, hosted countless USO shows, and headlined variety specials for decades. His wisecracking persona felt warm, making him an American institution of sorts. Even though Bob Hope's famous is undeniable, but behind the corny one-liners and golf club shtick, rumors hinted that Hope was fiercely protective of his star status. Insiders claimed that he micromanaged almost every aspect of his appearances, from comedic timing to lighting. One of the rumors for his ridiculous rules called USO Tour Rules. Entertainers who traveled with Hope to perform for U.S. troops often praised his generosity, but also noted he kept a strict hierarchy. Hope's segment was always last and longest, ensuring he got the final ovation. People reported that. No jokes that outshone the headliner, no attempts to steal the spotlight. If anyone violated those unwritten rules, their time on Hope's circuit could be abruptly cut short. Some chalked it up to comedic ego, others to savvy showmanship. He also cultivated a squeaky clean family man image, yet multiple stories suggested he kept numerous liaisons private. Some alleged that his comedic mask hid a cold, businesslike approach to personal relationships, a side of Hope fans never saw on screen. Whether or not all these rumors are accurate, they contributed to a more complex narrative than the carefree, crowd-pleasing entertainer he presented to the world. Frank Sinatra. No entertainer embodied old-school cool like Frank Sinatra. He was the suave crooner who lit up both stage and screen, transforming from a skinny teen idol to the iconic leader of the Rat Pack and a magnet for headlines. But along with his iconic performances came whispers of mafia connections, violent outbursts, and vengeful grudges. Friends and foes alike told tales of Sinatra's temper. Crossing him could lead to blacklisting from private clubs or vicious public rants. Dealers at the Sands Hotel in Las Vegas recalled several nights when Sinatra, frustrated by losing streaks, would slam cards on the table, curse loudly, and sometimes toss gambling chips at staff. Security would usher away gawkers to keep the scene private, but rumors spread quickly among the hotel's employees. After the Godfather novel came out, Sinatra reportedly believed the fictional singer Johnny Fontaine was based on him. Enraged, he publicly confronted author Mario Puzo in a restaurant, launching into a verbal tirade. Witnesses said Sinatra threatened to break Puzo's legs, though no physical altercation actually occurred. This incident cemented Sinatra's reputation for intimidating anyone who crossed him. Beyond that, gossip columns frequently linked Sinatra to organized figures who allegedly helped him secure show bookings and film opportunities. While such claims were never fully confirmed, the aura of danger and unpredictability only enhanced his mystique. Fans still swooned at his ballads, but behind that velvet voice was a man whose grudges lasted a lifetime. Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford epitomized old Hollywood glamour, stunning costumes, dramatic roles, and a forceful screen presence. That same unyielding energy made her a formidable presence off camera, where rumors of controlling behavior and parental cruelty swirled. People stated her nickname should be the Mother of Scandal. Industry gossip also suggested Crawford clashed viciously with her peers, especially younger actresses who she felt threatened her status. She was rumored to sabotage wardrobes, smear reputations behind the scenes, and wage all-out feuds if she felt slighted. An example, the rivalry with fellow star Bette Davis heated up during the production of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. Crew members whispered that Crawford, resentful of Davis's dominating performance, secretly weighed herself down with lead weights during a scene where Davis had to drag her across the floor, just to make the stunt physically agonizing for her co-star. Another biggest bombshell actually came from her adopted daughter, Christina Crawford, who wrote the memoir, Mommy Dearest. It depicted Joan as an abusive tyrant, someone who allegedly subjected her children to erratic punishments and unrelenting emotional pressure. Christina described these incidents such as Joan waking her children in the middle of the night to clean spotless floors, or punishing them harshly for trivial missteps. Those who admired Crawford's stylish elegance on the screen were often shocked by how fierce and vindictive she could be off-screen. While some insisted Christina exaggerated, many others who worked with Crawford found the portrayal alarmingly consistent with the star's explosive temper. Gene Autry. Gene Autry earned the title of America's favorite singing cowboy. He was the wholesome crooner who galloped across the silver screen, strumming a guitar and charming family audiences everywhere. Yet behind the friendly cowboy persona lay stories of strict control over his brand and a tendency to overshadow his co-stars. Rumor has it, Autry once walked away from a major studio deal when producers considered promoting a newcomer as a co-headliner. He insisted on sole star status, believing the audience came primarily for the singing cowboy brand. Production documents from the studio's archives, which later revealed by film historians, this confirm intense negotiations where Autry demanded ironclad assurances that his name appeared above the title in all promotional materials. Some colleagues claimed Autry would micromanage production details to ensure he always had the spotlight. He allegedly negotiated contracts that locked in his musical numbers as the show's highlight and limited scenes where co-stars might upstage him. In an era when star power meant everything, Autry took full advantage of his box office draw. He was no stranger to behind-the-scenes feuds, especially when he felt that supporting players were trying to steal focus. The outwardly humble cowboy would reportedly deliver stern ultimatums to producers. It's his show or he walks. When fans recall the easy-laughing cowboy crooning Western ballads, they rarely suspect the controlling streak that may have fueled his success. Walt Disney. While not an actor in the traditional sense, Walt Disney was the creative visionary behind countless beloved characters and films. For generations, he represented wholesome entertainment and imaginative storytelling. However, those who worked with him sometimes described a tense environment driven by relentless perfectionism. Disney built an empire from the ground up, and that level of ambition can breed friction. Some animators from the early Disney studios recalled punishing hours and sky-high expectations. If a scene didn't match Disney's vision, they might have to redraw entire sequences. He also allegedly kept strict rules about employee behavior, once telling staff he didn't want to see mustaches in the office, although, ironically, he was known for sporting one himself. Labor disputes escalated in the 1940s, culminating in a major strike at the Disney studio. Critics claimed Walt took the walkout personally, seeing it as a betrayal by the very artists he'd nurtured. Employee testimonies from that period paint a portrait of a man who could be warm and paternal one moment, then coldly unforgiving the next. There's no denying Disney's genius, but behind the castle walls, not everyone felt the magic. Cary Grant. Few leading men looked as polished as Cary Grant. Suave, effortlessly debonair, he seemed like the epitome of Hollywood refinement. And yet Grant's personal life was rife with inner turmoil and confusion, including allegations of controlling behavior in relationships. Biographers note that Grant could be deeply insecure, constantly reinventing himself. Born Archibald Leach in England, he left behind an impoverished childhood and a mother who was committed to an asylum under puzzling circumstances. Some say these early traumas fueled a lifelong quest for validation. Multiple wives described him as simultaneously charming and emotionally distant, prone to jealousy if he felt overshadowed. In private, Grant reportedly demanded near-total devotion, reacting poorly to any perceived slight. He also explored controversial therapies, including LSD sessions, in a time when it was largely unheard of, hoping to cure what he saw as deep-seated issues. The dashing star who seemed so effortless on camera may have been wrestling with emotional storms far bigger than the public ever realized. Charlton Heston, best known for epic roles like Ben-Hur and the Ten Commandments, Charlton Heston projected unwavering moral strength. Over time, though, his off-screen stances sparked heated debates, casting him in a contentious light that some found difficult to reconcile with his heroic image. Heston became a passionate advocate for gun rights, eventually heading the National Rifle Association. This activism alienated many in Hollywood, creating rifts that never fully healed. Some colleagues described him as stubborn and unyielding in debates, unwilling to consider alternative viewpoints. Even earlier in his career, Heston had a reputation for strong opinions on set. Directors sometimes clashed with his insistence on injecting moral or philosophical angles into roles. Co-stars recall him lecturing them on everything from acting methods to personal ethics. Admirers saw him as principled, while detractors saw him as sanctimonious. Either way, Heston's towering on-screen presence was matched by an equally forceful personality behind the scenes. Tex Ritter. Tex Ritter, known for singing cowboy ballads, followed a path similar to Gene Autry, using music and Western charm to capture hearts. In public, he was approachable, a friendly figure who performed at fairs, festivals, and on radio shows. Yet some accounts reveal a controlling streak and perfectionism that tested the patience of those around him. Ritter reportedly insisted on certain show conditions. His guitar had to be front and center, and no backing musician could overshadow his voice. Roadies recalled that if technical issues occurred, like mic feedback or an off-key backing band, Ritter's temper would flare. He'd sometimes tear into stagehands in full view of spectators, though he usually reined it in before damaging his wholesome reputation. Though it never rose to the level of big Hollywood scandal, the persistent theme was that the friendly cowboy persona had limits. If something threatened Ritter's carefully curated image or performance standards, he did not hesitate to remind everyone who was in charge. Roy Rogers, dubbed the King of the Cowboys, exemplified clean, family-friendly entertainment in westerns and variety shows alike. Publicly, he and wife Dale Evans projected an almost saintly image, devout, charitable, ever smiling. But like all icons, Rogers had another side. Co-workers whispered that Rogers was particular to the point of inflexibility about how he was lit, how stunts were choreographed, and how his beloved horse, Trigger, was showcased. Stunt coordinators, in particular, found him uncompromising if they even hinted that certain sequences might be too risky. Roy insisted on authenticity, which sometimes led to friction and injuries. He also demanded loyalty from everyone in his orbit. If an associate left for a competing show or film, Rogers reportedly cut ties permanently. This led to ongoing feuds that viewers never heard about, overshadowed by the wholesome brand he cultivated for decades. Even the king of the cowboys had territory he guarded jealously. James Stewart's gentle drawl and everyman persona made him one of the most admired actors of his generation. Films like It's a Wonderful Life and Mr. Smith Goes to Washington showcased him as the moral compass, the sincere voice of reason. However, not all was pure apple pie behind that all-shucks facade. There are accounts suggesting Stewart could be unexpectedly rigid on set. Fellow actors recounted situations where he forcefully defended his interpretation of a scene, rejecting a director's suggestions if they conflicted with his own instincts. Though rarely unkind, he nonetheless carried enough clout that few dared argue. Orson Welles, in private tapes, lambasted Stewart as cowardly and shallow, though some suspect Welles's own jealousy fueled that rant. Others simply believed Stewart's folksy persona didn't leave room for compromise, particularly on projects where he felt strongly. Tellingly, directors usually backed down, not wanting to upset the star whose name alone could fill theaters. So while Stewart remains a beloved icon, behind the comforting smiles lay a spine of steel that could bend a production to his will. From Henry Fonda's emotional distance to Faye Dunaway's fiery ambition, from Kirk Douglas's rumored menace to Jerry Lewis's comedic tyranny, and from Joan Crawford's alleged parental horrors to James Stewart's quiet insistence on control, these tales challenge the notion that Hollywood's golden age was as innocent as some imagine. Each icon sparkled in the public eye, but could cast a long shadow in private, revealing a side of stardom that goes far beyond red carpet glamour. So next time you lose yourself in a classic film, remember, the black and white illusions might be timeless, but the people behind them were every bit as flawed and multifaceted as the rest of us. Even Hollywood's most legendary figures weren't immune to the darker side of ambition, ego, and personal struggle. And that realization can deepen our appreciation of their artistry, even as it reminds us that stardom has never been a cure for human imperfection.